They found the Bible under my pillow at 3 a.m. I remember the sound, my bedroom door slamming open so hard the gold-framed mirror on my wall cracked. Not broke. Just cracked. A single line splitting my reflection in two. I remember thinking, in that half-second before my father's shadow filled the doorway, that the crack looked like lightning. Like the sky was tearing open. But there was no divine rescue that night. Only his voice. Get up. 2 words. That's all it took for my blood to turn to ice water. My father stood there in his white thobe, spotless as always, holding my Bible in his left hand like it was a dead rat. His right hand was clenched into a fist so tight I could see his knuckles glowing white even in the darkness. Behind him, 2 of his guards. Silent. Watching. Waiting. I couldn't breathe. Literally, my lungs forgot how. The silk sheets that cost more than most people's cars suddenly felt like they were suffocating me. My bedroom, with its crystal chandeliers and marble floors and hand-carved furniture shipped from Turkey, it all became a tomb in that moment. Baba, I can explain. Explain? His voice was quiet. Too quiet. That's how I knew I was in real danger. My father never yelled when he was truly angry. He whispered. Explain why my daughter, has betrayed Allah, betrayed our family, betrayed 15 generations of our bloodline for this? He threw the Bible onto my bed. It landed open, pages down, spine cracked. I wanted to reach for it. Protect it. But my hands wouldn't move. Do you know what they do to apostates, Amira? He stepped closer. I could smell his cologne, oud and amber, the same scent that used to make me feel safe when I was little. Now it smelled like death. Do you know what the law requires me to do? I knew. Of course I knew. I'd been reading about it in secret for months, the stories of converts found dead, honor killings disguised as accidents, families who chose their reputation over their children's lives. I just never thought my father would be capable of it. But looking into his eyes that night, those black, bottomless eyes that held no recognition, no love, nothing but cold religious fury, I understood. The man who taught me to ride horses when I was 6, who brought me gold jewelry from his business trips, who once told me I was his precious pearl, that man was gone. Or maybe he'd never really existed. I will fix this, he said, turning to leave. We have 3 days before anyone else finds out. 3 days to save our family's name. He paused at the door, his back to me. You will marry Ahmed's son. The wedding is planned for Thursday. He's willing to overlook this sickness because of our family's wealth. You should be grateful. Ahmed's son. Khalid. 43 years old. 3 previous wives. A man whose eyes followed me like a predator even when I wore my full abaya and niqab. And if I refuse? My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Broken. My father turned slowly. The look on his face made me wish I'd stayed silent. Then you won't live to refuse anything ever again. The door closed. The lock clicked from the outside. My golden cage had just become my prison cell. That was 6 months ago. But let me take you back further, back to where this nightmare truly began, back to when I was still the perfect Muslim princess living in a palace built on sand. I grew up in wealth that most people only see in movies. My father wasn't just rich, he was powerful. Royal connections, oil money, properties across 3 continents. Our family name opened doors that stayed locked for everyone else. My mother wore diamonds like other women wore scarves. My brothers drove cars that cost more than houses. And me? I was the jewel in my father's crown. The obedient daughter. The one who memorized Quran verses faster than my brothers, who wore hijab without complaint at 9 years old, who smiled gracefully at his business associates and never, ever questioned anything. I walked on marble floors so cold they numbed my feet, but not as cold as the emptiness growing inside my chest. Because here's what nobody tells you about golden cages: you can have everything and still be dying inside. I had closets full of designer abayas. I had servants who anticipated my needs before I spoke them. I had a life that looked perfect from the outside. But at night, alone in my massive bedroom with its silk curtains and expensive art, I would press my face into my pillow and wonder why I felt so utterly, completely alone. Why prayers felt like shouting into a void. Why following every rule, every restriction, every tradition left me feeling more empty instead of more fulfilled. Why, if I was living exactly the way Allah commanded, did I feel like I was slowly disappearing? I was 17 when the questions started. 19 when I found the Bible. 20 when Jesus wrecked my entire world. And 21 when my father decided I had to die. If you're watching this, maybe you understand that feeling. That suffocation. That sense that you're screaming underwater and nobody can hear you. Maybe you've worn the mask so long you forgot what your real face looks like. I need you to understand something before I go any further. What I'm about to tell you cost me everything. My family. My inheritance. My safety. My country. Everything. But I'd do it again. 1,000 times. Because what I found, who I found, was worth more than all of it combined. This is the story of how my father the king wanted my head, and how Jesus gave me a crown instead. Let me tell you about my father, the real him, not the man who smiled for photographs at charity galas. His name was Sultan al-Rashid. In our language, Sultan means king, ruler, the one who holds power. And he lived up to that name every single day of his life. 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, a beard trimmed with precision every morning by his personal barber. He wore authority like other men wore cologne. It preceded him into every room. People feared him. Not because he was loud or violent in public. No, my father was far more dangerous than that. He controlled people with his silence. With a look. With the subtle threat of what he could do if you displeased him. I watched him destroy a business partner once over a handshake he deemed too weak. The man lost everything: contracts, reputation, his children's university placements, all because my father made 3 phone calls. That's the kind of power he wielded. And I was his property. His daughter. His reputation walking around in human form. My mother tried to protect me when I was younger. Ummi was beautiful once. I've seen the photos from before her spirit broke. But 23 years of marriage to my father had turned her into a ghost who floated through our palace in silence, eyes always down, voice barely above a whisper. She had her own pain. Her own scars. Some I could see, like the time she fell down the stairs and wore long sleeves for 3 months in 110-degree heat. Most I couldn't. Amira, she told me once when I was 16, gripping my hand so hard it hurt, marry whoever your father chooses. Don't fight. Don't question. It's easier that way. Survival is easier than rebellion. I understand now that she was trying to save me the only way she knew how. But her advice was poison disguised as protection. The morning after they found my Bible, I woke up on my bedroom floor. I'd cried myself to sleep there, too terrified to get back into bed, as if staying low to the ground might make me invisible. The marble was cold against my cheek. The call to prayer echoed. From the mosque down the street, the same prayer I used to find comforting. Now it sounded like a funeral dirge. For a moment, I let myself hope it had been a nightmare. That my father hadn't really found the Bible. That I was still safe in my carefully constructed double life. Then I heard the voices downstairs. My father. My two older brothers, Rashid and Faisal. Uncle Ahmed, the man whose son I was being sold to. And Imam Hassan, our family's religious advisor, whose sermons about the fires of hell used to make me shake when I was a child. They were deciding my fate. Without me. Like I was livestock at a market. I pressed my ear to the floor vent, the one that carried sound from the majlis below straight to my room. My heart was hammering so hard I thought they might hear it 2 floors down. The girl has brought shame upon your house, Sultan. Imam Hassan's voice, thick and syrupy. The law is clear about apostasy. I am aware of the law. My father's voice cut like a blade. I am also aware that if word spreads about this contamination, our family's standing will be destroyed. 3 generations of reputation, gone because my daughter read the wrong book. Then let me take her. Uncle Ahmed. I could hear him sipping tea, so casual, like he was discussing a business transaction. Khalid will straighten her out. He has experience with difficult women. His last wife learned obedience. Eventually. The way he said eventually made my stomach turn. I knew what had happened to Khalid's last wife. Everyone knew, even if no one said it out loud. She'd been hospitalized twice. The 3rd time, there was a funeral. Weak heart, they said. She was 24 years old. The wedding will be in 4 days, my father announced. Private ceremony. Family only. Amira will wear niqab so no one sees her face. We'll say she's emotional about leaving home. After the marriage, she becomes Khalid's problem. If she continues this Christian nonsense, under his roof, he can deal with it however he sees fit. Christian nonsense. 6 months of reading the words of Jesus. 6 months of feeling, for the first time in my life, like someone actually loved me without conditions. 6 months of prayers that felt like conversations instead of obligations. 6 months of discovering that God wasn't the angry, distant tyrant I'd been taught to fear. All of it reduced to nonsense. And if she refuses the marriage? Faisal, my younger brother, spoke up. At least he had the decency to ask. She's stubborn, Baba. You know this. Silence. Long and heavy. Then my father's voice, quiet and cold, then we will have a funeral instead of a wedding. Either way, this ends in 4 days. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My own father, the man whose DNA I carried, who'd held me as a baby, who'd paid for the best schools and the finest clothes and everything money could buy, had just ordered my death as casually as ordering dinner. Marry a monster or die. Those were my options. I don't know how long I lay there on the floor, frozen in shock. Time stopped meaning anything. The sun rose higher, light streaming through my curtained windows, but all I felt was darkness. Around noon, my mother came to my room. She knocked softly, a courtesy, since the door was locked from the outside, then let herself in with a key. She carried a tray of food I couldn't imagine eating. "Amira, Habibdi, you need to eat something." Her voice was gentle but strained. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Did you know?" I asked. My voice sounded strange, hollow. "Did you know he was going to do this?" She set the tray down with shaking hands. For a moment, I thought she might actually be honest with me. But then her face closed off, that familiar mask of submission sliding into place. "Your father knows what's best," she whispered. "Khalid is a good match. Financially secure. Respected in the community. You'll have a good life if you just obey." A good life? I laughed, and it came out broken and bitter. His last wife died. And you want me to lower your voice." She glanced at the door in panic. "Do you want them to hear you? Do you want to make this worse? How could this possibly be worse? He's going to kill me, Ummi. Your husband is going to murder your daughter because I read a book. Because I asked questions. Because I found something real instead of just going through the motions like a robot." Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't argue. Couldn't argue. Because she knew I was right. "Then do as he says," she begged, gripping my hands. "Marry Khalid. Hide your Bible. Pretend. Survive, Amira. Please. I can't lose you. I can't bury another child. Another child." She was talking about my little sister, Layla, who died at 3 from an illness the doctors said was treatable. But my father had insisted on religious healers instead of hospitals until it was too late. Layla's death had broken something in my mother that never healed. "I love you, Ummi," I told her, meaning it with everything in me. "But I can't pretend anymore. I can't marry him. I can't go back to the lie." She pulled away from me like I'd burned her. Her eyes, those tired, sad eyes, filled with something that looked like grief. "Then you've already chosen death," she whispered. She left the tray and walked out, locking the door behind her. I heard her crying in the hallway, quiet sobs that faded as she moved away. And I was alone again. With 4 days until my forced wedding to a man who'd already buried one wife. 4 days until my father made good on his threat. 4 days to either escape or die. I pulled the Bible from where I'd hidden it again, a loose panel behind my bookshelf that the guards hadn't found. The pages fell open to Matthew 10 verse 28. "Do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell." My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the book. "Jesus," I whispered into the silence of my locked room, "if you're real, if you really see me, I need you to show up. Because I can't do this alone. I can't." I didn't know it yet, but he'd already heard me. The real miracle was just beginning. Have you ever prayed so hard you thought your heart might burst? Have you ever begged God, really begged, for an answer, only to be met with crushing, suffocating silence? That's where I lived for the next 2 days. In the silence. They kept me locked in my room like a prisoner. Guards posted outside my door. My phone confiscated. My laptop gone. Even my windows were watched. My bedroom faced the garden, and I could see 2 of my father's men stationed below, smoking cigarettes and making sure I didn't try to climb down. I was trapped in luxury. A bird in a gilded cage with clipped wings, waiting for slaughter. And I prayed. Oh God, how I prayed. At first, I did what I'd always done. I performed wudu, the ritual washing, even though my hands shook so badly I could barely manage it. I unrolled my prayer mat, the expensive Persian one my father had brought back from Mecca. I faced toward the Kaaba, thousands of miles away, and I prostrated myself on the ground. Allah, I whispered, forehead pressed to the mat, please. Please show me what to do. Give me a sign. Send help. Change my father's heart. Something. Anything. I'm drowning here. I'm dying. Please. Nothing. Just the sound of my own breathing. The distant hum of air conditioning. The call to prayer from the mosque that nobody in my house actually cared about except as a social obligation. I prayed the far prayer at dawn. Nothing. Dur at noon. Nothing. Asr in the afternoon. Silence. Maghrib at sunset. Emptiness. Isha at night. The void staring back at me. 21 years I'd been praying 5 times a day. 21 years of memorized Arabic words that were supposed to bring me close to God. 21 years of performing perfectly, following every rule, being the model Muslim daughter. And in my moment of desperate, life or death need, Allah was silent. Or maybe, and this was the thought that terrified me more than anything, maybe he'd never been listening at all. I tried reading the Quran. My father had given me a beautiful copy for my 16th birthday, leather-bound with gold leaf pages. I opened it at random, looking for comfort, for guidance, for something to hold on to. My eyes fell on Surah 434, the verse about disobedient wives. About how men are in charge of women. About striking them into obedience. I slammed the book shut so hard the sound echoed through my room. Is that it? I shouted at the ceiling, not caring anymore if the guards heard me. Is that your answer? Obey or be beaten. Submit or die. Is that really what you want from me? The ceiling didn't answer. My mother came again that second day, bringing food I wouldn't eat and reassurances I couldn't believe. Just 2 more days, Habibdi, she said, arranging my hair with gentle fingers like she used to when I was small. Then you'll be married. Khalid isn't so bad. You'll see. You'll adjust. Women always adjust. Did you adjust? I asked her, turning to look directly into her eyes. Is that what you call what happened to you? Adjustment? She flinched like I'd slapped her. Her hand went instinctively to her left wrist, the one that had been broken twice. I survived, she whispered. That's what matters. No, Ummi. Survival isn't enough. Not anymore. There has to be more than just existing. Just breathing. Just waiting to die. She looked at me with such profound sadness that I almost took it back. Almost told her I'd do it. I'd marry Khalid. I'd give up the Bible and the questions and Jesus and everything, just to ease the pain in her eyes. But then she said something that changed everything. "You remind me of myself," she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Before your father. I used to ask questions too. Used to dream of doing something more. Traveling. Studying. Having choices." She laughed bitterly. "Look where that got me. 23 years of silence. 23 years of being invisible. This is mercy, Amira. I'm trying to save you from hope. Hope is what kills you." She left before I could respond. And I realized my mother was already dead. She died years ago. Her body still walked around, still performed its functions, but the woman she could have been? That woman had been murdered by submission. I refused to let that happen to me. That night, 2 days before the wedding, I pulled out the Bible again. I'd been afraid to read it since they'd found my first copy, afraid that somehow they'd know, that they'd burst through the door again and take this one too. But what did I have to lose now? I was already condemned. I opened it randomly, desperately, looking for anything to hold on to. The pages fell open to Psalm 23, and I started reading through tears that blurred the words. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul." My soul. The thing that felt shattered into a million pieces inside my chest. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." The valley of the shadow of death. That's exactly where I was. I could feel death's shadow covering me, cold and heavy, counting down the hours until my father's ultimatum expired. "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." My enemies. My father. Uncle Ahmed. Khalid. The Imam. Every man who decided my life was worth less than their reputation. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Forever. Not just survival. Not just existence. Not just enduring until death finally brought relief. Forever. With a God who actually loved me. I read it again. And again. And again. Until I'd memorized every word. Until something inside my chest, something that had been locked tight for so long, started to crack open. "Jesus," I whispered into the darkness, "I know I'm new at this. I know I don't pray like Christians are supposed to pray. I don't know all the right words. But I need you. Not Allah. Not the God who's been silent my whole life. Not the God who commands my death for asking questions. I need you. The one who died for me. The one who calls me beloved instead of property." I waited. Listening. Hoping for. I don't know what. A voice? A feeling? Some kind of supernatural sign? Nothing dramatic happened. No angels appeared. No burning bush. No voice from heaven. But something did change. The crushing weight on my chest, the panic that had been suffocating me for 2 days, it lifted. Just slightly. Just enough that I could take a full breath for the first time since my father had found my Bible. And into that breath came a thought, crystal clear, that wasn't my own. I haven't forgotten you. Trust me. Was it Jesus? Was it just my own desperate mind? I didn't know. Couldn't prove it. But it felt real in a way that 21 years of Islamic prayers never had. It felt like someone was actually there. Actually listening. Actually caring what happened to me. I started reading more. Frantically now, hungry for every word. I read about Jesus healing the sick, feeding the hungry, defending women that society wanted to stone to death. I read about him touching the untouchable, loving the unlovable, choosing the outcasts and the broken and the desperate. I read about him standing up to religious leaders who cared more about rules than people, who used God's name to control and abuse and condemn. And I read about the cross. About how he died, not just as a prophet, not just as a teacher, but as a sacrifice. Taking the punishment for everything I'd ever done wrong, so I wouldn't have to. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. Whoever believes. Not whoever performs perfectly. Not whoever follows all the rules. Not whoever earns it or deserves it or works hard enough. Whoever believes. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn Allah's love through perfect performance. Through hijab and prayers and fasting and memorization and obedience. And I'd never felt loved. Not once. Just afraid. Constantly afraid of making a mistake, of being punished, of never being good enough. But Jesus just said, "Come to me. Believe. And I'll love you." It seemed too simple. Too good to be true. But drowning people don't critique the lifeline thrown to them. They just grab on and hold tight. I believe, I whispered into the darkness. I don't understand it all. I'm terrified. But I believe you're real. I believe you see me. I believe you care. So, I'm yours. Whatever happens tomorrow, or the next day, or at that wedding. I'm yours. Save me or let me die. But either way, I'm yours. The call to prayer echoed from the mosque. Allahu Akbar. God is greater. But for the first time in my life, those words felt like a lie. Because the God I'd been praying to for 21 years had never once made me feel the way I felt in that moment, reading about Jesus, talking to Jesus, belonging to Jesus. One day left until the wedding. One day until my father made good on his threat. And I had no plan. No escape route. No rescue coming. Just a Bible. A whisper of hope. And a Jesus I was betting my entire life on. I didn't know yet that he'd already been planning my rescue. That the impossible was already in motion. That I was about to witness something that would shatter every scientific explanation and leave even my enemies speechless. I just knew I wasn't alone anymore. And somehow, that was enough. I need to take you back 6 months. Back to the moment that changed everything. Back to the day I found the Bible, or maybe the day it found me. Because none of this makes sense without understanding how a girl who'd never even met a Christian, who'd been taught her entire life that the Bible was corrupted and worthless, ended up hiding one under her pillow like it was oxygen itself. It started with a dream. I know how that sounds. Trust me. But I need you to understand, I wasn't looking for Jesus. I wasn't searching for another religion. I was just drowning in questions that nobody would answer. Questions like, why did Allah create me female if being female meant being worthless? Why did the Quran say Allah was merciful when everything about Islam felt like fear and control? Why did my prayers echo back empty when everyone promised that submission would bring peace? The dream came on a Thursday night. I remember because Fridays were holy days, and I'd spent the evening at the mosque with my mother, listening to an imam preach about hell. He spent 40 minutes describing the tortures awaiting sinners in vivid, horrifying detail. The fire. The boiling water. The chains. The screaming. I was 19 years old, and I went to bed that night terrified that one wrong step would land me in eternal torture. But that night, I dreamed. In the dream, I was drowning. Literally sinking in dark water that pulled me down no matter how hard I fought. My lungs were burning. My arms were exhausted. I was dying, and I knew it, and the terror was so real I could taste it, metallic and bitter like blood. Then someone grabbed my hand. I looked up through the murky water and saw a figure above me. A man. I couldn't see his face, the light behind him was too bright, like staring at the sun. But his hand was scarred. I could feel the raised tissue under my fingers as he pulled me up toward the surface. We broke through together, and I gasped air into my lungs, choking and crying and clinging to him like he was the only solid thing in the universe. And he said, I will never forget this as long as I live, he said. I'd been waiting for you, Amira. I've been calling your name. It's time to come home. His voice was, I don't have words for it. Warm like sunlight. Strong like thunder. Gentle like my mother's hands used to be before fear broke her. It went straight through my chest and wrapped around something deep inside me that I didn't even know was there. Then I woke up. It was 3 a.m. I was soaked in sweat, my heart racing, and I felt different. Lighter somehow. Like something heavy I'd been carrying my whole life had been set down, just for a moment. I told myself it was just a dream. Stress. Too much time thinking about theology. Nothing more. But it kept happening. Different scenarios, but always the same figure. Always the scarred hands. Always that voice calling my name with a love that made me want to weep. After the 5th dream in 2 weeks, I broke down and did something unthinkable. I Googled, dreams of man with scarred hands. I was on my laptop at 2 a.m., door locked, volume off, heart pounding like I was committing murder. Because in my world, even searching for information about other religions was haram. Forbidden. Dangerous. The results came up immediately. Hundreds of them. Testimonies from Muslims, mostly women, who'd had the exact same dream. The figure in white. The scarred hands. The voice full of love. And they all said the same thing, it was Jesus. My first reaction was to slam the laptop shut. To dismiss it as Christian propaganda, lies meant to deceive faithful Muslims away from the truth. But the dreams didn't stop. And the questions wouldn't leave me alone. So I kept searching. In secret. In the middle of the night when the rest of my family slept. Using VPNs and private browsers because I knew my father monitored our internet usage. I read testimonies. Watched videos on mute with subtitles. Read articles comparing the Quran and the Bible. Studied Islamic arguments against Christianity and Christian responses to those arguments. And the more I read, the more the foundation I'd built my entire life on started to crack. I learned that Jesus, Isa in the Quran, claimed to be God. Not just a prophet. God. The Quran tried to deny it, but even Islamic sources couldn't fully erase what the historical Jesus actually said about himself. I learned that Jesus died. The Quran said he didn't, that Allah substituted someone else and only made it look like Jesus was crucified. But every historical source, Muslim or otherwise, confirmed the crucifixion actually happened. I learned that Jesus rose from the dead. That hundreds of people saw him alive after his execution. That his followers went from terrified cowards hiding in locked rooms to bold preachers willing to die rather than deny what they'd witnessed. And I learned that Jesus loved women. This hit me harder than anything else. In Islam, I'd been taught I was worth half a man's testimony. That my inheritance should be half my brother's. That I needed male permission to travel, to marry, to make major decisions. That if I was raped, I needed 4 male witnesses or I'd be punished for adultery. That my own father could kill me for dishonoring the family and it would be legally justified. But Jesus defended the woman caught in adultery when men wanted to stone her. He talked theology with the Samaritan woman at the well, a double scandal because she was both female and from a hated ethnic group. He appeared first to women after his resurrection, making them the first evangelists when women's testimony wasn't even valid in court. He treated women like they were human, valuable, worth loving and teaching and dying for. I cried reading those stories. Sitting in my bathroom at 4 a.m. with my laptop balanced on the sink, tears streaming down my face, realizing that there was a God who actually saw me. Who didn't view me as lesser than or property or a sexual temptation that needed to be covered and controlled. But reading wasn't enough. I needed the actual book. I needed to see for myself what the Bible really said, not filtered through Islamic apologetic or Christian websites. Getting a physical Bible in my country, in my father's house? That was suicidal. But I was desperate. And desperation makes you brave or stupid. Maybe both. I found a Christian woman online, Maria. She ran an underground ministry helping seekers in Muslim countries. We messaged through encrypted apps, and she never pushed, never pressured. She just answered my questions with patience and scripture and her own story of converting from Islam. If you want a Bible, she finally said after weeks of conversation, I can get you one. But Amira, you need to understand the risk. If your family finds it, they won't just take it away. They'll punish you. Severely. I know, I typed back. But I need to know the truth. Whatever it costs. 2 weeks later, I went to the marketplace with my mother and our driver. While Ummi was haggling over fabric, I slipped away to a small bookshop in the corner, one I'd arranged to meet Maria's contact at. The shop owner was an old man with kind eyes. He didn't say anything, just slid a package across the counter wrapped in plain brown paper. I paid him with cash I'd been saving for my allowance, money that was supposed to go toward jewelry and clothes. I hid the package in the bottom of my shopping bag, under scarves and makeup and other things that would explain why I'd wandered off. My heart didn't stop racing the entire drive home. Every time my mother looked at me, I was certain she could see through the bag, through my lies, straight to the contraband I was smuggling like drugs. But we made it home. And that night, locked in my bathroom with the shower running to cover any sound, I unwrapped the package. It was small. Paperback. English and Arabic in parallel columns. The cover was simple, nondescript, nothing that would draw attention if someone glanced at it quickly. And it was the most dangerous thing I'd ever held in my hands. I opened it to the first page of Matthew. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it still enough to read. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Just names at first. A family tree. But then, now the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way. When his mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, before they came together she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. I'd heard the Islamic version, that Isa was born of a virgin, that he was a miracle. But reading it here, in this book that Muslims called corrupted, it felt different. More intimate. More real. I read for 3 hours that night. Through Jesus's birth and childhood. Through his baptism and temptation. Through his first miracles. And then I hit the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapters 5 through 7. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. I had to stop reading. Had to put the Bible down and just sit there, stunned, because these words were splitting me open. Blessed are those who mourn. I'd been mourning my whole life, mourning the freedom I'd never have, the voice I'd never be allowed to use, the person I could never become. And Jesus said that mourning was blessed? That comfort was coming? Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. I was starving. Desperately hungry for something true, something real, something that would fill the hollow ache inside my chest that all the prayers and fasting and religious performance had never touched. And Jesus promised I'd be satisfied? I kept reading, tears blurring the words. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In Islam, I'd been taught that non-Muslims were enemies. That jihad against them was righteous. That their blood was halal, permissible. But Jesus said love them? Pray for them? What kind of God says that? The kind who died for his enemies while they were still his enemies. That's what kind. I read until my eyes burned. Until the call to prayer for far echoed through the pre-dawn darkness. Until I heard my father moving around downstairs and knew I had to hide the Bible before anyone discovered what I was doing. I found the loose panel behind my bookshelf, a gap in the ornate wooden backing that opened to the wall cavity. I wrapped the Bible in a scarf and tucked it inside, then carefully replaced the books. But I couldn't hide what was happening inside my heart. For 6 months, I lived 2 lives. By day, I was Amira al-Rashid, perfect Muslim daughter. I wore hijab. I prayed the required prayers, though now they felt hollow, like saying words in a language I'd forgotten. I attended family functions and smiled graciously and never let anyone see the revolution happening inside my chest. By night, I was someone else. Someone hungry for truth. Someone falling in love with a God who died to save her instead of demanding she die to prove her loyalty. I read the entire New Testament 3 times. I memorized passages. I started praying to Jesus instead of Allah, terrified at first, certain I'd be struck dead for blasphemy, but then overwhelmed by the sense that he was actually listening. And I started to change. Not outwardly, I was too afraid for that. But inside, something was being rebuilt. Something that felt like hope. Like joy. Like the person I was always meant to be before religion and culture and my father's expectations crushed her into silence. I became addicted to that Bible the way people become addicted to air. Every day without reading it felt like suffocation. Every verse felt like water in a desert I'd been wandering my whole life. Jesus became more real to me than my own father. More present. More loving. More true. And that's when the war started. The war between loyalty and truth. Between survival and surrender. Between the life I'd always known and the life Jesus was offering. I knew I couldn't keep living the lie forever. Eventually, I'd have to choose. I just didn't know the choice would be forced on me at 3 a.m. with my father standing over my bed holding the evidence of my betrayal. But now you understand. Now you know why I'd rather die than give up that book. Why I couldn't just marry Khalid and pretend. Why I told my mother that survival wasn't enough. Because I'd tasted living water, and I couldn't go back to dying of thirst just to keep everyone comfortable. The Jesus I'd met in that Bible was worth losing everything for. I just had no idea I was about to lose it all at once. 1 day left. 24 hours until the wedding. 24 hours until I either married a man who'd already buried one wife, or died for refusing. I hadn't slept in 3 days. Not really. Just fragments of exhausted unconsciousness that brought nightmares instead of rest. My room felt like it was shrinking, the walls pressing in closer every hour. The guards outside my door. The locked windows. The tray of food I couldn't eat growing cold on my dresser. I was alone. Completely, utterly alone. Except I wasn't. It was 2 a.m. when everything changed. When the impossible broke through into my impossible situation. I was sitting on my bedroom floor, back against the bed, the Bible open in my lap. I'd been reading the Gospel of John, chapter 14, where Jesus tells his disciples he's leaving them but won't abandon them. Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? My heart was beyond troubled. It was shattered. Pulverized. Barely beating. Jesus, I whispered, my voice cracking, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if this is real or if I've just lost my mind. But tomorrow they're going to force me to marry him, and I can't. I can't do it. I'd rather die. But I'm so scared. The air changed. I don't know how else to describe it. 1 second I was alone in my room, and the next second the atmosphere shifted, like the pressure before a storm, but not oppressive. The opposite. Like the air suddenly had weight and warmth and presence. The temperature rose. Not hot, but warm, like standing in sunlight after being in the cold too long. And the light, oh God, the light. It started as a glow in the corner of my room, near the window. Soft at first, like dawn breaking, but growing brighter, stronger, until my entire bedroom was filled with light that shouldn't exist. Light that had no source. Light that came from everywhere and nowhere. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything but stare as the light coalesced, took shape, became someone. A figure stood in my room. A man. Tall. Dressed in white that was somehow brighter than the light surrounding him. And I knew. Immediately. Without question. Without doubt. Jesus. He looked at me, and his eyes. I've tried 1,000 times to describe them and failed every time. They were brown, deep, rich brown like earth after rain. But they held everything. Oceans of love. Universes of understanding. Lifetimes of sorrow mixed with indescribable joy. He looked at me the way I'd spent my entire life desperate for someone, anyone, to look at me. Like I mattered. Like I was precious. Like everything about me was seen and known and loved anyway. I couldn't speak. My voice died in my throat. Terror and awe and overwhelming love crashed over me in waves. I was on my knees without remembering how I got there, tears pouring down my face, every molecule of my body screaming that I was in the presence of something holy. Amira. He said my name, and his voice. His voice was the same one from my dreams, but richer, deeper, more real. It resonated in my bones. In my blood. In the deepest parts of my soul. My beloved daughter. Daughter. Not property. Not a shame. Not a problem to be solved or a reputation to be managed. Daughter. I broke. Completely shattered. Sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe, doubled over on the floor, 21 years of pain and fear and loneliness pouring out of me in waves. And then I felt his hand on my head. The touch was real. Physical. Warm and gentle and so full of love I thought I might die from it. I see you, he said softly, his hand still resting on my head like a father blessing a child. I have always seen you. Every tear you've cried. Every prayer you've whispered. Every moment you felt alone and forgotten. I was there. I have always been there. I'm so scared, I choked out, finally finding my voice. Tomorrow they're going to, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to. Do you trust me? He asked. I looked up at him through tears. His face was kind but serious. Strong. This wasn't the gentle Jesus from children's Bibles. This was the Jesus who'd overturned tables in the temple. Who'd called religious leaders whitewashed tombs. Who'd chosen the cross over compromise. This was a king asking if I'd follow him into battle. I want to, I whispered. But I'm terrified. What if you don't? What if nothing changes? What if I lose everything, Anne? You will lose everything, he said, and his honesty was like cold water. Following me will cost you your family. Your home. Your safety. Your comfort. Everything you've known will be stripped away. My heart sank. That wasn't what I wanted to hear. I wanted him to promise rescue. To say he'd change my father's heart, that everything would work out perfectly, that faith meant happy endings. But then he smiled. And that smile held such fierce joy, such absolute certainty, that something in my chest caught fire. But Amira, he continued, and his voice grew stronger, what you'll gain is worth infinitely more. You'll gain me. You'll gain freedom. You'll gain purpose and truth and a life that actually matters for eternity. You'll gain the family I've chosen for you. You'll gain a testimony that will bring thousands out of darkness. He knelt down, this king, this God in human form, knelt down to look me in the eyes. I didn't come to make your life comfortable, he said. I came to make you alive. Truly alive. The life your father offers is death disguised as safety. The life I offer is abundance disguised as sacrifice. But tomorrow, I started. Tomorrow, I will show your father and everyone else who I am, he said, and his voice carried absolute authority. Tomorrow, you will not face them alone. Tomorrow, they will see my power, and some will believe while others will rage. But you will walk out of that house free. Not because you earned it. Not because you're strong enough. But because I've already purchased your freedom with my blood. He reached out and wiped the tears from my face with his scarred hand. I could see the marks clearly now, the wounds in his wrists where nails had been driven through. They weren't healed over. They were still open, still visible, permanent reminders of what he'd endured. For me. He'd endured that for me. Why? I whispered. Why would you do this? Die for me? Save me? I'm nobody. I'm just. You are mine, he said, and the fierceness in his voice made me catch my breath. You were mine before the foundation of the world. Before your father decided you were property. Before Islam tried to tell you that you were worthless. Before culture and tradition tried to silence your voice. You have always been mine, Amira. And I protect what's mine. He stood, and the light around him grew brighter. Tomorrow, when they come for you, do not be afraid. When they threaten you, do not back down. And when they test your faith, trust me. No matter what you see. No matter how impossible it looks. Trust me. I will, I promised, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. I'll trust you. Even if I die. Even if. You won't die tomorrow, he said, and there was something almost like amusement in his voice. You'll live. And your life will testify to my power and my love for decades to come. This is just the beginning, beloved. Your story is going to set captives free. The light began to fade. He was leaving. And suddenly I was desperate for him to stay. Wait. I reached out. Please don't go. I can't do this without you. I can't. I'm not going anywhere, he said gently. You just won't see me with your physical eyes. But I am with you, Amira. I will never leave you. Never forsake you. From this moment until the moment you see me face to face in eternity, I am with you. In you. Fighting for you. I love you, I said, the words tumbling out desperately. I don't know how to say it right, I don't know the proper prayers, but I love you. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. For saving me. For. I love you too, he said, and those words wrapped around me like armor. Like a shield. Like the strongest fortress in the universe. Now rest. Tomorrow, I go to war for you. The light vanished. I was alone in my room again. The clock on my dresser read 2:47 a.m. The Bible was still open in my lap. My face was still wet with tears. But everything had changed. The fear was gone. Not diminished, gone. Replaced with something that felt like steel wrapped in peace. Like certainty forged in fire. Jesus was real. He'd been in my room. He'd touched me. He'd spoken to me. And he'd promised to fight for me tomorrow. I don't know if you can understand what that does to a person. What it means to go from absolute despair to unshakable hope in the span of 45 minutes. To go from feeling abandoned to knowing that the creator of the universe has your back. I climbed into bed. For the first time in 3 days, I felt calm. And I slept. Deeply. Peacefully. Like a child who knows her father is standing guard at the door, and nothing can touch her while he watches. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Didn't know what miracle Jesus had planned or how he'd keep his promise. I just knew that when the morning came and my father came for me, I wouldn't face him alone. The King of Kings had declared war on my behalf. And everyone in that house was about to find out what happens when you mess with one of God's daughters. The wedding day arrived like an execution. I woke to the sound of women's voices downstairs, aunts, cousins, neighbors coming to help prepare the bride. They had no idea the bride would rather die than go through with this ceremony. They probably wouldn't have cared if they did. Sunlight streamed through my curtained windows. My last morning in this room. My last morning as Amira al-Rashid. By tonight, I'd either be Amira al-Khalidi, property of a man who'd buried his last wife, or I'd be dead for refusing. But I felt no fear. I know that sounds impossible. I should have been terrified. Should have been planning escape routes or writing goodbye letters or having a complete breakdown. Instead, I felt ready. Jesus had promised he'd fight for me today. I believed him. With a certainty that defied logic or self-preservation, I believed him. I performed wudu one last time, not out of obligation, but as a goodbye. A final ritual for the religion I was leaving behind. Then I got on my knees beside my bed and prayed. Not toward Mecca. Not in Arabic. Just talked. Jesus, I don't know what today holds. I don't know what miracle you have planned or how this ends. But I trust you. You said you'd be with me. You said I wouldn't face them alone. So, here I am. Use me. Save me. Show them who you are. Whatever it takes. Peace settled over me like a blanket. Warm. Solid. Unshakable. The door unlocked. My mother entered with 3 other women, my aunts Fatima and Layla, and a professional makeup artist I'd never met. They carried garment bags and makeup cases and boxes of jewelry. Time to get ready, Habibti, my mother said. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. She'd accepted my fate even if she couldn't stop it. They dressed me like a doll. The wedding dress was cream-colored, long-sleeved, high-necked, modest by Islamic standards. Expensive lace. Hand-embroidered details. Beautiful in the way a coffin can be beautiful. The makeup artist painted my face with expert precision. Foundation. Contour. Eyeshadow in golds and browns. Dark liner. Red lips. I looked like someone else in the mirror. Older. Harder. Not me. You look beautiful, Aunt Fatima said, adjusting my hijab, a cream-colored silk that matched the dress. Khalid is a lucky man. Lucky. That's what she called it. I said nothing. Just stared at my reflection and remembered Jesus's words, "Tomorrow, I will show your father and everyone else who I am." Today. He meant today. My mother fastened a necklace around my throat, gold with a crescent moon pendant. The symbol of Islam pressed against my skin like a brand. "Amira," she whispered, leaning close while the other women fussed with my dress, "please. Just do this. Say the vows. Submit. Survive. That's all I'm asking. Please." I turned to look at her. Really look at her. At the broken woman who'd forgotten what it meant to fight. Who'd chosen slow death over the risk of living. "I love you, Ummi," I said quietly. "But I can't be you. I won't be you. I'd rather die free than live in chains." She pulled back like I'd struck her. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't argue. What could she say? She knew I was right. At noon, the guests began arriving. Not many. My father had kept this wedding deliberately small to avoid questions about the rush. Just immediate family, Uncle Ahmed and his household, a few business associates, and Imam Hassan to perform the ceremony. And Khalid. I heard his voice downstairs. Deep. Rough. Laughing at something my father said. My stomach turned, but I forced it down. "It's time," Aunt Layla announced. "The ceremony will begin in 10 minutes. They escorted me downstairs like guards escorting a prisoner. My dress rustled with each step. The gold jewelry at my wrists and throat felt like shackles. The majlis had been transformed. Carpets and cushions arranged in a large circle. Roses and white lilies everywhere, their perfume thick and cloying. The guests sat along the walls, faces turned toward me as I entered. And there, at the front, stood Khalid. 43 years old. Heavy build. Beard dyed black to hide the gray. Eyes that tracked me like a predator watching prey. He smiled when he saw me, and I felt my skin crawl. Next to him stood my father. Dressed in formal white robes. Expression stern. He looked at me with cold satisfaction. The problem was finally being solved. His reputation would remain intact. Imam Hassan stood between them, holding the Quran. "Come, Amira," the Imam said. His voice was honey-sweet but his eyes were sharp. "It's time to fulfill your duty as a daughter and a Muslim woman." I walked forward. Each step felt surreal. Like I was watching myself from outside my body. The guests murmured approval. Someone said, "Mashallah, what God wills." Someone else commented on my dress. I stopped in front of the Imam, facing Khalid and my father. "We are gathered to witness the marriage contract between Khalid ibn Ahmed and Amira bint Sultan," the Imam began, opening the Quran. "Marriage is a sacred bond ordained by Allah, a mercy and a blessing. His words washed over me. I wasn't listening. I was praying. Jesus. Now would be good. Whatever you're going to do, now would be really good. Sultan al-Rashid, as the bride's father and guardian, do you consent to this marriage? I do, my father said firmly. Khalid ibn Ahmed, do you accept Amira bint Sultan as your wife, with the agreed dowry, according to Islamic law? I do, Khalid said, his eyes never leaving me. And Amira bint Sultan, the Imam turned to me, do you accept Khalid ibn Ahmed as your husband, to honor and obey according to Islamic law? The room went silent. Every eye on me. Waiting. This was it. The moment of choice. Say yes and live as Khalid's property. Say no and face the consequences my father had promised. I thought of Jesus kneeling in my room last night. His scarred hands. His fierce love. His promise, tomorrow, I will show your father and everyone else who I am. I took a deep breath. No. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Gasps rippled through the room. My mother made a sound like she'd been stabbed. Khalid's face darkened with rage. What did you say? My father asked, his voice deadly quiet. I turned to face him directly. Met his eyes without flinching. I said no. I won't marry him. I won't marry anyone you choose. I'm not your property. I'm not a problem for you to solve. I'm a person, and I refuse. My father's hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming. The slap cracked across my face, snapping my head to the side. Pain exploded across my cheek. I tasted blood. You dare, he started, raising his hand again. I dare, I said, cutting him off, my voice stronger now. Because I've found something worth dying for. Someone worth dying for. And his name is Jesus Christ. The room erupted. Shouts of outrage. Cries of horror. Someone screamed blasphemy. Khalid lunged toward me, but Uncle Ahmed grabbed his arm. My father's face turned purple with rage. You will take back those words, he hissed, grabbing my arm so hard I felt bones grind. You will denounce this kafir nonsense and accept this marriage, or I swear by Allah I will. You'll what? I challenged, and I felt something rising inside me, not my own courage, but something infinitely stronger. Kill me? Go ahead. Jesus already died for me. I'm not afraid of death anymore. This is demonic possession. Imam Hassan declared, clutching his Quran like a weapon. The girl has been corrupted by jinn. We must perform ruqya immediately. I'm not possessed, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the room. I'm free. For the first time in my life, I'm actually free. And I'm not going back to your prison. My father released my arm and turned to one of his guards. Bring me her Bible. The one we found. Now. Terror flickered through me. The Bible. My precious Bible with all my notes and tear-stained pages and conversations with Jesus written in the margins. The guard returned moments later carrying it. My father snatched it from his hands and held it up for everyone to see. This, he shouted, is the poison that has corrupted my daughter. This filth, these lies, this Christian garbage. He turned to me, and his eyes held something worse than anger. They held satisfaction. You want to die for this book, Amira? Then watch what I do to it first. He strode to the fireplace where a fire had been lit despite the heat outside, tradition for wedding celebrations. He held the Bible over the flames. Burn this book, he commanded, and renounce your blasphemy. Do it now, and I'll show mercy. I'll still make you marry Khalid, but you'll live. Refuse. He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. Every person in that room stared at me. Waiting. My mother was sobbing openly. My brothers looked disgusted. The guests whispered behind their hands. And I remembered Jesus' promise, when they test your faith, trust me. No matter what you see. No matter how impossible it looks. Trust me. Do it, I said clearly. Throw it in the fire. My father blinked, surprised. He'd expected me to cave. To beg. To break. What? Throw my Bible in the fire, I repeated, louder this time. If your God is real, it will burn. If my God is real, it won't. Let's see which God has power. The challenge hung in the air. I just echoed Elijah on Mount Carmel, calling down fire from heaven. Except I was calling for God to stop fire. Imam Hassan looked alarmed. Sultan, don't, this is foolishness. Just burn the book and be done with. No, my father said slowly, a terrible smile spreading across his face. Let's do exactly what she suggests. Let her God save his book. And when it burns, she'll have no more excuses. He dropped the Bible into the flames. For a second, nothing happened. The pages caught. Fire licked at the edges. Smoke rose. My heart stuttered. What if I'd been wrong? What if Jesus didn't? And then the fire went out. Not just around the Bible. The entire fire. All the logs, all the flames, extinguished in an instant like someone had flipped a switch. The room went deathly silent. My father stumbled backward, staring. Khalid's mouth fell open. The imam clutched his chest like he was having a heart attack. And I walked forward, reached into the cold fireplace, and pulled out my Bible. It was perfect. Not singed. Not damaged. Not even warm. I held it up for everyone to see. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My God is real, I said, and my voice rang with authority that wasn't my own. Jesus Christ is Lord. And he just proved it to all of you. Sorcery, the imam shrieked. This is black magic. Witchcraft. Then explain it, I challenged. Explain how a fire that was burning seconds ago just went out. Explain how this book sat in flames and didn't burn. You can't. Because this isn't magic. This is power. The power of the one true God. My father was shaking. Actually shaking. I'd never seen him afraid before. Get out, he whispered. What? Get out, he roared, his face contorted with rage and fear. You are no longer my daughter. You are dead to me. Dead to this family. I never want to see your face again. Leave this house and never return. It was exactly what Jesus had said would happen. Loss. rejection, everything stripped away. And I felt relief. Gladly, I said. I walked toward the door, still holding my Bible. The guests parted like I was on fire myself. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody spoke. My mother reached out as I passed, but I couldn't stop. Couldn't look back. Like Lot's wife fleeing Sodom, I knew if I looked back I'd turn to salt. Turn to stone. Turn back into the girl who'd been too afraid to live. I walked out the front door of my father's palace in my wedding dress, carrying nothing but my Bible. Behind me, I heard shouting. My father bellowing orders. Someone crying. But ahead of me was freedom. The gate was open, the guards too stunned by what they'd witnessed to think of stopping me. I walked through it into the street, into the afternoon sun, into a future I couldn't see but knew Jesus held. And I didn't look back. I want to tell you that walking out of my father's house was the end of the story. That the miracle of the Bible not burning meant instant freedom and happily ever after. But that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Freedom costs. And I was about to pay the price in full. I walked down the street in my wedding dress, barefoot because the decorative shoes they'd put on me had fallen off somewhere between the Majlis and the gate, clutching my Bible to my chest like it was the only solid thing left in the universe. I had no phone. No money. No identification. No plan. Just Jesus and a promise that he wouldn't leave me. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly. The cream-colored dress that had cost more than most people's monthly salary now felt like a target painted on my back. People stared. Some looked concerned. Others looked scandalized, a woman alone, dressed for a wedding, walking through the streets uncovered by male guardianship. I needed to disappear. Fast. Because I knew my father. The shock would wear off. The fear would transform into rage. And when it did, he'd send people looking for me. Not to bring me home, I'd been disowned, declared dead in front of witnesses. No, he'd send people to make sure I actually ended up dead. To tie up the loose end. To eliminate the stain on his reputation permanently. Honor killing. That's what they'd call it. If they called it anything at all. I'd walked maybe 10 blocks when I heard the car behind me. Engine revving. Getting closer. Terror shot through me. I didn't look back. Just started walking faster. Then running. The wedding dress tangled around my legs, but I hiked it up and ran like my life depended on it. Because it did. The car pulled alongside me. Black SUV. Tinted windows. My father's vehicle. The window rolled down. My brother Rashid leaned out. Amira, get in the car. His voice was hard. Father wants to speak with you. I'm not going back, I said, still walking, not looking at him. You don't have a choice. You've humiliated us. You've destroyed our family's name. You think you can just walk away after what you did? Watch me. The car swerved in front of me, blocking my path. Both front doors opened. Rashid got out from the passenger side. The driver, one of my father's guards, got out from the other. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Rashid said, approaching me. But either way, you're coming with us. I backed up, looking for an escape route. There, an alley between two shops. I bolted. Behind me, I heard Rashid curse and footsteps pounding after me. The alley was narrow, cluttered with garbage bins and discarded crates. I dodged around them, my dress catching on corners, my bare feet slipping on something wet and foul-smelling. "Jesus, please," I gasped, running blind, no idea where I was going or what I'd do if they caught me. The alley opened onto a busier street. Market stalls. Crowds. I plunged into the chaos, weaving between shoppers and vendors, using the confusion as cover. I risked a glance back. Rashid was still following, shoving people aside, his face twisted with fury. And then someone grabbed my arm. I screamed, trying to pull away, certain it was one of my father's men. "Quiet." A woman's voice, urgent and commanding. "Do you want to live or not?" I looked up. She was maybe 40, wearing a simple black abaya and hijab, her face kind but fierce. I'd never seen her before in my life. "Come with me. Now. Trust me." Trust. That word again. I let her pull me into a fabric shop. She spoke rapidly to the owner, an elderly man who nodded and gestured toward the back. The woman dragged me through racks of colorful cloth into a storage room, then through another door I hadn't noticed, and suddenly we were in a completely different building. "Stay here," she commanded, pushing me into what looked like a storage closet filled with boxes. "Don't make a sound. Don't come out until I come back for you." She closed the door, and I was alone in darkness. My heart hammered against my ribs. I could hear muffled voices outside, men shouting, asking questions. My brother's voice, demanding to know if anyone had seen a woman in a wedding dress. Lies from the fabric shop owner. "No, no one like that. Try the next street." Footsteps fading. Silence. I don't know how long I crouched in that closet. Could have been 20 minutes. Could have been 2 hours. Time stretched and warped. All I could do was pray. "Jesus. Jesus. Jesus." Over and over, like breathing. Like a heartbeat. Finally, the door opened. The woman stood there with a bundle of clothes. "Put these on. Quickly. Your dress stands out like blood on snow." I changed in the darkness, my hands shaking. A plain black abaya. A black hijab that covered everything. She'd even brought worn sandals that were too big but better than bare feet. "Who are you?" I asked. "Someone who knows what it's like to run," she said simply. "My name is Miriam. I'm part of an underground network that helps people like you." "Christians?" She smiled slightly. "Former Muslims who found Jesus." "Yes. We help get them to safety." "How did you know?" "I was at your father's house this morning," she said. "Helping in the kitchen. I heard everything. The confrontation. The miracle with the Bible." Her eyes shone with tears. "I've been a secret believer for 7 years. 7 years too afraid to leave, too afraid to speak up. And then I watched you, this young girl barely out of childhood, stand up to Sultan al-Rashid himself and declare Jesus as Lord." She gripped my shoulders. "You have more courage than I've had in 7 years. And I wasn't going to let you die for it. I started crying. Again. Seemed like all I did anymore was cry. Thank you, I choked out. Thank you, I didn't know what to do, I didn't have anywhere to. You're not safe yet, she cut me off, her voice urgent. Your father has put out word. He's offering money, a lot of money, to anyone who brings you back. Dead or alive. We need to get you out of the city. Out of the country if possible. How? I don't have papers, I don't have. I know people, she said. But it will be dangerous. And there's no going back, Amira. Once we start this, you can never return. You'll lose everything. Your family, your country, your old identity. Everything. I thought of Jesus's words, you will lose everything. But what you'll gain is worth infinitely more. I've already lost everything that matters to them, I said. And I've gained everything that matters to me. Miriam smiled. Then let's go. What followed were 3 weeks that felt like 3 years. Miriam took me to a safe house, a tiny apartment in the poorest part of the city where nobody asked questions. 3 other believers stayed there, all of them ex-Muslims, all of them hiding. There was Fatima, who'd been beaten unconscious by her brothers when they found her baptism certificate. There was Yusuf, who'd been a promising imam until he read the New Testament and couldn't unread it. And there was Sarah, only 17, pregnant from rape by her cousin, who'd found Jesus through a dream and refused to abort the baby even though it meant exile. We were the broken ones. The dangerous ones. The ones our families would rather see dead than different. But in that tiny apartment, reading the Bible together by candlelight because the electricity was unreliable, praying for each other, sharing our stories, I found more family than I'd ever had in my father's palace. This is what church is supposed to be, Yusuf said one night. Not buildings and programs. Just broken people gathering around Jesus. But we couldn't stay there forever. My father's men were searching. Door to door in some neighborhoods. Showing my picture. Offering rewards. Twice we had to evacuate in the middle of the night because someone got too close. Once we hid in a mosque basement for 3 days, the one place my father's secular guards wouldn't think to look, and the imam was secretly sympathetic to believers. Miriam worked her connections. There was a pastor in Turkey who helped refugees. He could get me papers, forged, but good enough to get me across the border. From there, maybe Europe. Maybe America. Somewhere I could live openly as a Christian without looking over my shoulder every second. But it would cost money. A lot of money. Money none of us had. How much? I asked. $3,000, Miriam said quietly. For the papers, the smuggler, bribes at the border. $3,000. I'd spent more than that on a single handbag before. Now it might as well have been 3 million. I'll figure it out, I said, though I had no idea how. That night, I prayed differently than I ever had before. Jesus, I need $3,000. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know who has it or how to get it. But you promised you'd take care of me. You promised you wouldn't leave me. So, I'm trusting you. Again. Still. Always. 2 days later, Miriam came back from the market with wide eyes. "You're not going to believe this," she said breathlessly. I ran into Maria. "The woman from the online ministry who got you your first Bible." Maria. I'd almost forgotten about her in the chaos. "She's here? In the city?" "She comes through sometimes, delivering Bibles to seekers." When I told her about you, about what happened, Miriam pulled out an envelope. "She wants to help. From her ministry's emergency fund." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was $3,200. American currency. I sat down hard on the floor, staring at the money, unable to speak. "He provides," Miriam said softly. "Always. Maybe not when we want or how we expect. But always." The escape was planned for the following Friday, 3 weeks and 2 days after I'd walked out of my father's house. A car would take me north at night. To the border. A man named Ibrahim, a Christian from Turkey, would meet me there and get me across. It wasn't legal. It wasn't safe. But it was the only way. The night before I left, we had communion together in that tiny apartment. Yusuf had managed to get bread and grape juice. We sat in a circle on the floor, all of us refugees and outcasts, and remembered Jesus. "This is my body, broken for you," Yusuf said, breaking the bread and passing it around. I took a piece and ate it, and for the first time I understood. Jesus's body had been broken, tortured, crucified, destroyed, so mine could be made whole. So I could be free. "This is my blood, shed for you," he continued, holding up the cup. I drank, and I thought about the blood Jesus shed. The blood that spoke a better word than Abel's blood crying out for vengeance. Jesus's blood cried out for mercy. For forgiveness. Even for people like my father. Even for people like Khalid. Even for the imam and my brothers and everyone who'd wanted me dead. "I forgive them," I whispered. "What?" Sarah asked. "My father. My family. All of them. I forgive them." Tears streamed down my face. "I don't want to. They don't deserve it. But Jesus forgave the people who crucified him, and he's asking me to do the same. So, I forgive them." The weight that lifted off my chest in that moment was indescribable. Like I'd been carrying boulders and suddenly they turned to air. We prayed late into the night. For each other. For others still trapped. For boldness and protection and miracles. And the next night, I left. Ibrahim met me at the rendezvous point, a gas station on the outskirts of the city. He was older, weathered, with kind eyes and a cross tattooed on his wrist that he usually kept hidden. "You ready?" he asked. "No," I admitted. "But I'm going anyway." The drive took 6 hours through darkness. We passed 3 checkpoints. At each one, my heart nearly stopped, certain they'd discover me, drag me out, send me back. But Ibrahim had done this before. He knew which guards to bribe. Which papers to show. What lies to tell. And Jesus was with us. I felt him there, invisible but more real than the seat beneath me. At dawn, we reached the border. A fence. Guard towers. But also, a gap. A place where the fence had been cut and poorly repaired. "Go," Ibrahim said, pointing. Run straight north. Don't stop. 2 kilometers, there's a church. They're expecting you. They'll take you the rest of the way. Thank you, I said. For everything. For risking. Thank Jesus, he interrupted. I'm just his hands and feet. Now go. Quickly. I ran. Through the gap. Across rocky ground that tore my sandals and cut my feet. Through brush that scratched my arms. I ran like the Israelites fleeing Egypt, like Lot's family fleeing Sodom, like everyone who's ever had to choose between staying in slavery or risking everything for freedom. And when I finally saw the church, a small stone building with a cross on top, I collapsed on the steps, sobbing with relief and exhaustion and overwhelming gratitude. A priest found me there. Father Andreas. He helped me inside, gave me water, bandaged my feet. Welcome, daughter, he said in English with a thick accent. You're safe now. You made it. Safe. The word felt foreign. Impossible. But looking around at the church, at the cross on the wall, at the Bible on the altar, at the freedom to worship without hiding, I realized it was true. I'd made it. I'd lost my family, my country, my name, my inheritance. Everything. But I'd gained Jesus. And a family that would never disown me. And freedom to live as the person God created me to be. And in that moment, I knew, with absolute certainty, that I'd make the same choice again. 1,000 times over. It was worth it. All of it. That was 4 years ago. 4 years since I walked out of my father's palace. 4 years since the Bible didn't burn. 4 years since I chose Jesus over everything I'd ever known. Let me tell you where I am now. Because I need you to understand, Jesus keeps his promises. Every single one. I'm sitting in a small apartment in Europe. It's nothing like the mansion I grew up in. No marble floors. No crystal chandeliers. No servants. I have a second-hand couch, a kitchen table I bought at a thrift store, and a coffee maker that only works half the time. And I've never been happier in my entire life. The church, Father Andreas and his congregation, helped me get asylum. They provided housing, language classes, support, and most importantly, discipleship. For the first time, I learned what it meant to follow Jesus not just as an escape from Islam, but as a daily choice to surrender everything to him. I was baptized 6 months after arriving. I still remember standing in that baptismal pool, Father Andreas placing his hand on my shoulder, asking if I confessed Jesus as Lord. I do, I said. With everything in me, I do. He lowered me under the water, burial with Christ, and raised me up again. Resurrection. New creation. The old Amira drowned in that water. The woman who rose up was someone entirely different. Someone free. I learned to read the Bible not in secret, not in fear, but openly. I attended church every Sunday without wondering if someone would report me. I prayed out loud with other believers without worrying about who might hear. I sang worship songs at full volume in my tiny apartment. Do you know what freedom sounds like? It sounds like praising God without fear. It sounds like laughter without looking over your shoulder. It sounds like truth spoken in daylight instead of whispered in darkness. But it wasn't all easy. Jesus never promised easy. He promised he would be with me. And he was. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, missing my mother. Wondering if she was okay. Wondering if she ever thought about me or if she'd truly erased me from her memory like my father commanded. There were moments of crushing loneliness when I'd see families together and remember what I'd lost. What I'd given up. The cost of following Jesus isn't theoretical, it's bone deep and heartbreaking and real. There were days I struggled financially. Asylum seekers can't work legally for months. I survived on church charity and food banks, wearing donated clothes, counting every cent. The girl who once had unlimited credit cards now had to choose between buying bread or taking the bus. And there were times I was terrified. Because leaving my country didn't mean I was completely safe. My father has connections. Money. Reach. There were moments I thought I saw one of his men on the street, or heard footsteps behind me at night, and the old fear would rise up like a wave trying to drown me. But every single time, Jesus showed up. When I was lonely, he sent believers into my life who became family. Maria, who'd given me my first Bible, visited twice. We cried together, prayed together, marveled at what God had done. Miriam made it out 6 months after I did. She's in Canada now, and we video chat every week. When I was broke, provision appeared. An anonymous donation. A job opportunity. A check in the mail with no return address. Always exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. When I was afraid, he gave me peace. Supernatural peace that defied circumstances. The kind of peace that can only come from knowing that even if they kill your body, they can't touch your soul. That to live is Christ and to die is gain. I started volunteering with a ministry that helps Muslim women escape abuse and persecution. I translate materials into Arabic. I share my testimony. I counsel other women who are exactly where I was, trapped between faith and family, between truth and tradition, between Jesus and everything they've ever known. And I get to tell them, it's worth it. The cost is real, but Jesus is more real. The loss is devastating, but what you gain is infinitely greater. Choose him. Even if it costs everything. Choose him. Last year, I enrolled in university. Theology. I'm studying the Bible academically now, learning Greek and Hebrew, diving deeper into the word that saved my life. My dream is to become a Bible teacher specifically for women from Muslim backgrounds, to help them understand what they're reading, to answer their questions, to walk with them through the journey from Islam to Jesus. I'm writing a book. This testimony, but longer. More detailed. For women who need to know they're not alone. That others have walked this path before them. That Jesus is worth it. And I'm making videos. Like this one. Sharing my story on every platform that will host it, because I know that somewhere out there, there's another girl lying in bed in her father's house, suffocating under the weight of Islam, wondering if there's more. There is more, sister. His name is Jesus. And he's worth everything. But here's what I need you to understand, whoever you are watching this. Whether you're Muslim or Christian or atheist or searching or broken or desperate or just curious, this isn't just my story. This is an invitation. Jesus didn't rescue me from my father's house just so I could tell a dramatic story. He rescued me so I could point others to him. So my life could be a testimony to his power, his love, his absolute unwillingness to abandon his children. If you're Muslim and you're watching this, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I've been deceived. That I've turned my back on truth. That I'm going to hell for apostasy. That I'm a traitor to my family, my culture, my religion. I understand. I thought the same things once. But I'm asking you, just asking, to consider this. What if you've been lied to? What if Allah isn't God? What if the Quran isn't the final revelation? What if there's a God who actually loves you, not just as a servant but as a child? As a beloved son or daughter? What if Jesus really is who he claimed to be, not just a prophet, but God in flesh, who died for your sins so you could have relationship with him? I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you to do what I did, read the Bible for yourself. Pray and ask God, the real God, to reveal the truth to you, even if it destroys everything you thought you knew. He'll answer. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not the way you expect. But if you're genuinely seeking truth, he will reveal himself. I promise you that. And when he does, when you encounter the real Jesus, not the Isa of the Quran but the Jesus of the Bible, your life will never be the same. It might cost you everything, like it cost me. Your family might reject you. Your community might turn on you. You might lose your job, your home, your safety. Following Jesus in a Muslim context is dangerous. I won't lie about that. But let me ask you this, what's the alternative? Living a lie? Performing prayers to a God who never speaks? Following rules that promise peace but only bring bondage? Dying without ever knowing the love of the one who created you? Jesus said, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul?" You could keep everything, your family's approval, your reputation, your comfort, your safety, and still lose your soul. Still miss the entire purpose of your existence. Still die without ever knowing real love, real freedom, real life. Or you could risk everything for Jesus and discover that he was worth more than all of it combined. If you're Christian watching this, I have a different message for you. Wake up. Do you understand what you have? Do you comprehend the treasure you've been given? You were born into freedom I had to flee a country to find. You can own a Bible without fear of execution. You can worship openly. You can pray to Jesus out loud. And what are you doing with that freedom? Are you taking it for granted? Treating church like a social obligation? Reading your Bible once a week if you remember? Praying only when you need something? I would have died for what you have. Literally. And I almost did. Don't waste it. Don't be a lukewarm Christian who has access to everything and appreciation for nothing. Don't be someone who claims Jesus as Savior but never lets him be Lord. Don't be comfortable and complacent while people around the world are dying, literally dying, for the faith you treat like a hobby. Use your freedom to help those of us who don't have it. Support ministries that smuggle Bibles. Donate to organizations that help refugees. Pray for persecuted believers. Speak up. Be bold. Risk something for your faith. Because Jesus didn't die so you could live a safe, comfortable, self-centered life. He died so you could be part of his mission to seek and save the lost. To set captives free. To bring light into darkness. So be the light. Be the answer to someone else's desperate prayer. And if you're watching this and you don't know Jesus at all, if you're an atheist or agnostic or just spiritually confused, let me tell you something. I've lived on both sides. I've lived under Islam's religious system. I've lived in secular freedom. And I'm telling you from experience, neither one satisfies. Religious performance without relationship is slavery. Secular freedom without purpose is emptiness. But Jesus? Jesus is life. Abundant life. Real life. The kind of life that makes sense of suffering, gives meaning to struggle, turns pain into purpose, and promises that death isn't the end. You were created for relationship with God. That hole inside your chest, that ache you try to fill with success or relationships or entertainment or substances, it's a God-shaped hole. And nothing else fits. Jesus is offering to fill it. Not with rules. Not with religion. With Himself. So here's my invitation to all of you. Right now. Wherever you are. If you want what I have, if you want the peace that defies circumstances, the joy that survives suffering, the love that casts out fear, the purpose that makes life worth living, you can have it. Right now. Jesus doesn't care about your past. Doesn't care what you've done or how far you've strayed or how broken you are. He specializes in broken people. He loves broken people. He's not looking for people who have it all together. He's looking for people who know they don't. Who know they need a savior. Who are willing to surrender everything to follow Him. So I'm going to pray. And if you want to accept Jesus, if you want to start this journey, this adventure, this terrifying and beautiful life of following Him, pray with me. Out loud if you can. In your heart if you can't. Jesus, I'm talking to you right now because Amira said you're real and you listen. I don't know if I believe all of this yet, but I want to. I want to know if you're real. I want to know if you really love me like she says you do. I'm a sinner. I've done things I'm ashamed of. I've lived for myself instead of for you. I've ignored you or denied you or just never thought about you. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to say it, but I'm sorry. Amira said you died for me. That you took the punishment I deserve so I could be forgiven and have relationship with you. I don't fully understand it, but I believe it. Or at least, I want to believe it. So I'm saying yes. Yes to you. Yes to following you, even though I don't know where that leads. Yes to trusting you, even though that terrifies me. Yes to surrendering my life to you, because clearly I've made a mess of it on my own. Save me, Jesus. Change me. Make me new. Show me what it means to really live. I'm yours. From this moment forward, I'm yours. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, if you meant it, then welcome to the family. Welcome home. You just made the most important decision of your entire existence. And I need you to know, this is just the beginning. The road ahead won't be easy. Jesus never promised easy. He promised He would be with you. And He will be. Every step. Every struggle. Every victory. Find a Bible and start reading. Start with the Gospel of John, that's where I started. Find a church where they teach the Bible and believe Jesus is Lord. Not a social club, a real church with real believers who will help you grow. Find other believers who can walk with you, disciple you, answer your questions. You weren't meant to do this alone. And message me. Seriously. If you're a Muslim who just accepted Christ and you're terrified about what comes next, reach out. There are people, ministries, networks, believers all over the world who will help you. You are not alone. For years ago, I was trapped in my father's house with no escape and no hope. Today, I'm free. Not just physically free, truly free. Free to be who God created me to be. Free to use my voice. Free to love without fear. Free to live instead of just survive. And if Jesus can do that for me, a Muslim girl from a powerful family in a country where leaving Islam means death, he can do it for you too. Whatever you're trapped in. Whatever you're running from. Whatever you're desperate for. Whatever you've lost or never had. Whatever you need. Jesus is the answer. Not religion. Not ritual. Not rules. Jesus. The one who stood in my room and promised to fight for me. The one who made fire go out and protected his word. The one who provided exactly what I needed exactly when I needed it. The one who turned my story of loss into a testimony of his faithfulness. My father the king wanted my head. He wanted me silent, obedient, destroyed. But Jesus gave me a crown. A crown of life. A crown of righteousness. The crown of someone who belongs to the King of Kings and will reign with him forever. And he's offering you the same crown. Will you take it? Will you risk everything for him? Will you say yes to the adventure, the danger, the cost, the glory, the joy of following Jesus no matter where he leads? I did. And I've never regretted it for a single second. Don't wait. Tomorrow might be too late. You don't know how much time you have. None of us do. But you know right now, in this moment, that you need him. So come to him. Run to him. Fall into his arms and let him catch you. He's been waiting for you. Calling your name. Reaching out his scarred hands to pull you out of the water you're drowning in. Let him save you. My name is Amira. I was a Muslim princess trapped in a palace made of lies. But Jesus set me free. And he wants to set you free too. Come home.